No problem. We're live again, everyone. Welcome to the Azure and AI Show. We've got a couple of new speakers with us, and Paul is going to go first there. Paul has two sessions for us. One is a practical introduction to the Azure cloud, and then his other session then is from prompt to production, building Copilot agents with real world cases. Yeah, very good, Paul. So then we have Sowjanya is going to do a session for us on generative AI for credit risk assessment, right? That's a machine learning framework for data augmentation and scoring. Yep, some great stuff there. And Hari will be taken up then with his session, JD Edwards to Oracle Fusion, cloud migration, data conversion strategy. But first of all, we have Dan Ray live from Redmond. He's at the MVP Summit, and Dan is going to share some interesting stuff there before we get going. Over to you, Dan.
We just finished the MVP Summit, and you can see behind me the kind of new iconic Microsoft sign that everybody's taking photos of. This was kind of the new meeting place, if you will, and it's between several new buildings that Microsoft has built out. These are buildings 1 through 7 on campus, and they're working on at least 2 more new buildings. So this is like a big square with surrounded by buildings. And then over this way, they're actually working on 2 new buildings. You can see some of the construction going on. There's going to be a walkway between these 2 buildings. And then there's a gigantic underground parking right behind this iconic Microsoft sign. So this elevator and stairs take you down to the parking levels. And the MVP Summit is so big that we have to spread out into several of these different buildings to meet with product teams, to talk about the future of these Microsoft products. We're in an interesting time in the March timeframe right before Build. So many of the announcements and the things that will be maybe made public at Build, they're talking to us as MVPs about ahead of time. So I can't share the content that was discussed at the MVP Summit, but I can share some of the experiences that we get as MVPs. So here we have a map of the different areas of campus. So you can see the buildings 1 through, it looks like 11 is on this map, the square that I'm in, and the plaza. Which building is this? I don't even know what TEC stands for offhand, but building 37 is on there. And then many of the places will have portions of the map. The campus isn't just this. Then the final thing that I'll share with you is what they're calling the SR 520 trail. And this is a overpass that they put in so that you can get from one side of campus to the other side of campus. And so this walkway is a canopy, and you can either walk up to it here or you can take some stairs up to it. But that canopy runs over to the other side of campus. So if you haven't been to Microsoft headquarters before, I just wanted to give you a brief tour of at least the most probably iconic spot on campus, which is this mall area with the new Microsoft sign and many of the new buildings. And Frank, I'll turn things back over to you now.
Okay, that's a huge campus. I didn't realize it was that big. Okay, Paul, do you want to share your screen there so when we get going?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I audible enough?
Not really.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's kind of going in and out. Maybe if you turn up your Paul, if you turn off your camera, you might get a bit more power.
Okay. All right. Okay. Is it good now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good evening again. I will just go ahead and share my screen.
So if you hit the button in the middle there with the screen on it, and then it'll say share screen.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And then share entire screen. Yeah.
Yes. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it there now, Azure Cloud.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So this is a practical introduction to the Azure Cloud. And I would love to start by introducing myself. My name is Paul Ogboriefor. I am a Microsoft MVP in the M365 category. And I will be taking you through this particular session of Azure Cloud. Definitely, this is a beginner session. That is to say, we'll be taking it gently, one step at a time, to ensure that everybody, whether a beginner or an expert in the field, will be able to follow along as we go through it, one slide after the other, even down to the Azure portal. So there are a few things I aim to achieve in this session. 3 outcomes majorly. One is to understand what Azure is in a very plain English language. When we talk about computing, we talk about storage, we talk about networking, and even AI services on demand. So the essence why I introducing AI a bit, I mean, it's not something we're going to delve in full time. The essence of just introducing this is the essence of the show. We have it as, let me pick my pen. We have it as Azure and AI show. And so I just thought to chip in the relationship between AI and the cloud. Then another thing I aim to achieve from this session is to navigate the Azure portal confidently, especially for guys that are new to using Azure, so they will be able to go through it without fears of the unknown. We'll be talking about the search bar in the Azure portal, the service pages. We'll talk about resource groups and probably create one, then virtual machines, and then notification. Right. Then the last thing I would aim for the audience to take home is to see a real resource created, like I mentioned, navigating through confidently, and we may just end up creating one or two resources and see how the resources and services in Azure collaborate and works in hands together. Right. So yes, is the session flow for today. Welcome, and then a simple concept of what it is, the portal tour, the resource group, virtual machine. Then we look at Cloud Shell, clean up, and then we arrive in a plain Microsoft cloud platform that helps us to provision our phone now. We must have had sessions that has to do with cloud computing, where we were told that cloud computing is basically uh, accessing resources over the internet. So the term cloud is equal to internet. I know there are many instances we can begin to use already because of the age that we have. Almost everybody now uses a mobile phone, and in our mobile phone, we have things like social media. We have Snapchat, for example, for our photos. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, even LinkedIn that is there. So one thing I usually say when we talk about cloud computing is to ask a simple question. If you are familiar with Facebook, you're familiar with Instagram. So the photos you upload to get engagement.
We seem to have lost.
Did we lose Paul?
We
Frank,
did.
looks like we lost Paul.
Yeah, I'll just send him a message there just to. He mightn't be sure he's knocked off. 2 seconds now. I'll just send him a message there. We'll see, will he come back to us? We'll just give him a minute, and if he doesn't kind of come back to us, we'll switch it over to your session then. John, yeah?
Yeah, sure, Frank. Yeah.
No worries, no worries. So it was an interesting week at the MVP Summit. Anybody have any interest in becoming an MVP or working towards it?
Are you there as well, Frank?
No, I didn't get to go.
Oh,
It's a long journey. Like from where I would, if I had to go, I would have to get a bus about 3.5 hours from where I live, and then get a plane, which is 10 hours over to America from Ireland. And it's it can be quite expensive, like, so you get yourself put up in a hotel as well. But I am going to another conference next month. It's in Europe. It's the MCT conference. That's in Sarajevo.
Okay.
is that in Italy or Spain somewhere?
It's in Bosnia Herzegovina.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, former Yugoslavia. So, yeah. So I don't get any message back from Paul.
Great sound.
So will we start off with your session? So, and Paul, if he comes back to us, because he seemed to have his networking issues. Yeah, so if you hit the present button down the bottom there, do you see the little screen with the cross? and then you'll get another screen, another thing come up, and it'll say share screen. And then on the top right-hand corner, you'll see share entire screen.
Okay.
Yeah, there you got it. I have you up on the screen now, yeah. Generative AI for credit risk.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm Sowjanya Karri, currently working as Principal Technical Engineer in Oracle. And today I want to present my work on Generative AI for Credit Risk Assessment, a machine learning framework for data augmentation and scoring. So, credit risk assessment is essential in the financial services industry for assessing borrower reliability and preserving lending institutions' viability. However, data sparsity, class imbalance, and intrinsic bias in real world financial datasets continue to be problems for traditional models. So, these problems frequently impede the efficiency and equity of credit scoring systems, resulting in risk projections that are inaccurate and incomplete. And modern banking systems rely heavily on credit risk assessment when making financial decisions. So, the possibility of the borrower defaulting on the loan is calculated using this information, which has a direct impact on lending practices, interest rates, and portfolio risk management. So, the need for flexible credit scoring systems has increased in a time when digital financing is expanding and becoming available to the wider range of demographic groups. In order to guarantee both performance and equity in lending decisions, institutions are being compelled to embrace more sophisticated data driven strategies that transcend conventional criteria. And the main issue is that majority of credit scoring models now in use have trouble generalizing to a wide range of borrower profiles and fall short in addressing fairness, particularly when trained on biased or incomplete data. Although they perform better, even the most sophisticated machine learning models frequently lack transparency in their decision making and do not take any structural inequities in the underlying data into consideration. So the goal of this research is to investigate how generative artificial intelligence methods might be included into credit risk assessment pipelines in order to address this. In particular, this work suggests synthesizing high quality borrower data that closely reflects actual credit profiles using conditional tabular generative adversarial networks, which is also called as CTGAN. By improving class presentation and lowering bias during training, this synthetic data can be added to our already existing data sets. And the main objective is to attain more equitable and comprehensible credit score results when combined with machine learning classifiers like XGBoost, Random Forest, and neural networks. So this work makes three main contributions. In the first place, it shows how CTGen may be used to create artificial borrower profiles that fill in data gaps and capture the statistical features of actual data. Second, it offers a hybrid framework that can classify data reliably even in situations when there is a class imbalance by fusing this generative method with a supervised credit scoring model. And third, this study uses commonly used metrics including AUC, demographic parity, and SHAP-based interpretability tools to assess the suggested system on three important dimensions, which are model performance, fairness, and explainability. Coming to motivation, the evaluation of the credit risk has changed dramatically over time, moving from conventional statistical techniques to contemporary machine learning and more recently generative artificial intelligence. Prior models frequently failed to adjust to complicated high dimensional borrower data since they were rule-based and only used a small number of numerical characteristics. And this emergence of machine learning brought with its issues related to interpretability, fairness, and bias amplification, but it also increased prediction skills. By creating synthetic samples that maintain statistical characteristics while resolving data imbalance and sparsity concerns, generative AI, in particular, generative adversarial networks, has become a viable option for improving the quality of trained data in recent years. So, uh, so this discusses the evaluation of traditional credit scoring models to state-of-the-art generative models and looks at new developments in explainable, fairness-aware AI for financial risk modeling. And neural networks, random forest, and gradient boosting are examples of machine learning approaches that have shown excellent performance in credit risk modeling. Prediction accuracy is increased by these models and ability to capture high order feature dependencies and non-linear interactions. However, machine learning models are frequently criticized for their opaqueness and propensity for overfitting, especially when they are trained on incomplete or unbalanced data sets. Few researchers integrate the creation of synthetic data with fairness aware modeling and interpretability despite advancements in the use of generative models and machine learning to credit scoring. So the majority of this research addresses both topics separately, concentrating on either fairness or model performance, but infrequently both. Frameworks that use generative models like CT-GAN to synthesize tabular financial data and concurrently apply explainable AI tools and fairness metrics to guarantee ethical and accountable results, which are noticeably lacking. So this is a suggested system which addresses issues with bias, lack of interpretability, and imbalanced data by including generative AI into the credit risk assessment pipeline. Together with conventional machine learning classifiers, it integrates explainability and fairness assessment into the system and uses CT-GAN to generate synthetic data. Real and synthetic data can move through parallel channels in this modular structure before being combined for model training and assessment. In addition to enhancing prediction performance, this structure also increases regulatory and ethical compliance. So this is the proposed framework, which is the architecture, which starts with two data channels, one for synthetic data produced by CT-GAN and another for actual borrower profiles. To maintain homogeneity, the data sets undergo pre-processing utilizing encoding and normalization techniques. These are then combined and fed into the training pipeline, which trains models to forecast credit risks such as random forest or XGBoost. Fairness metrics are calculated to evaluate equal opportunity and demographic parity after classification, and SHAP values are used to explain model predictions. So this design guarantees a complete pipeline for accurate and moral credit rating. And this system integrates a generative model that synthesizes realistic borrower data in order to address the drawbacks of imbalanced data sets in credit risk modeling. CT-GAN, a tailored variant of generative adversarial networks for structured tabular data, is the model that is employed here. So the approach increases the diversity of the training set and strengthens the resilience of the classifier by producing synthetic records that match real world data distributions. In addition to addressing the class imbalance, conditional sampling in CT-GAN enables the targeted creation of represented borrower profiles. So making accurate forecasts is very crucial in today's credit scoring systems, but so is ensuring that they are fair and comprehensible. So in order to facilitate transparent decision making and regulatory compliance, this suggested framework incorporates explainability and fairness evaluation as essential elements. The approach makes sure that no demographic group is disproportionately affected by algorithmic bias by assessing fairness using demographic measures and interpreting model outputs using SHAP values. Each feature's effect on the model's prediction is interpreted with using the SHAP, which is also known as Shapley additive explanations. It offers both global insights into feature importance across the dataset and local explanations for the decisions made by specific borrowers. So this increases system trust by assisting regulators and financial institutions in understanding the rationale behind a particular credit decision. So these are the metrics like accuracy, precision, recall, F1 score, and AUC, which are employed to assess the performance. All the models shown improvements in all measures with the use of CT-GAN augmentation, particularly in recall and AUC. The comprehensive comparison is shown in this table. So the model with the highest AUC 0.91 and the recall 0.83 among all of the others was XGBoost with CT-GAN augmentation. Recall significantly improved for all suggested models, indicating improved risky borrowers in identification. While preserving interpretability, the suggested framework continuously improved F1 score and overall accuracy. So here in this slide, the distribution and amplitude of SHAP values for each feature and prediction are shown here. The characteristics that have the biggest and most constant influence on the model's outcome are duration, checking account, and housing situation. The feature values low to high and their impact on predictions are displayed by the color gradient here. So a single credit risk forecast is divided into positive and negative feature contributions in this figure. So the final risk score was positively influenced by employment stability, while it was negatively impacted by characteristics like short credit length and bad account status. Features are ranked in this bar plot according to their average absolute SHAP value, which shows how important they are globally in the model. The three factors that contribute most to all of the test sets predictions are duration, checking account, and credit history. So these findings unequivocally show that CT-GAN based augmentation raises the accuracy and predictive fairness of all classifiers, and recall and AUC show the biggest improvements, especially with the XGBoost. Features like housing status, bank account type, and credit term have a considerable impact on model results, as demonstrated by the SHAP visualizations. So these results confirm that the suggested architecture is effective at improving credit scoring systems in the actual world. So this study suggested a generative AI-based system for evaluating credit risk that combines machine learning classifiers with conditional tabular GANs to enhance performance on unbalanced financial data. Across several classifiers, the model showed increased accuracy, recall, and AUC. XGBoost fared the best. The system is accurate and interpretable thanks to the incorporation of SHAP-based explainability, which guarantees transparency in predictions. The outcomes of the trial confirmed that adding CT-GAN to minority borrower profiles results in more equitable, balanced, and trustworthy credit scoring models. Future improvements will concentrate on integrating fairness indicators straight into the model evaluation pipeline, such as equal opportunity and demographic parity. In order to capture shifts in borrower behavior over time, longitudinal borrower modeling with time series data will also be investigated. So in order to facilitate the creation of synthetic data among financial institutions while maintaining privacy and adhering to regulations, federated GAN architectures will also be examined. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Well executed. We don't have any questions on my side there. Hari, any questions?
Yeah, one question. So Sowjanya, is this part of Oracle suite, or like, it's like this is already implemented in as part of Oracle, any of their products or something?
No, Hari. Actually, I'm doing my research on my own and learning and research.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so you put all that together yourself. Yeah, very good. Well done. So, Hari, do you want to share your screen? There's no sign of Paul coming back to us.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I'll go ahead, Frank. In fact, I got 20 minutes, right? The session I wanted to present probably needs more time, but I thought 20 minutes I wanted to squeeze. I have some more time from Paul, so probably I can use that additional 20 minutes or something. Okay,
sure.
Thank you.
We can go into the next hour. There's no problem. Like, if you'd like to do that presentation, take your time. Yeah, we have your screen there now. Oracle Fusion Cloud.
Yep. So today's session.
If you just want to hit the little tab there, see hide next to perfect.
Excellent. Yep. So this session is about data conversion strategy from. I'm considering JD Edwards because that's where we did this project, but it can be any legacy ERP systems to Oracle Fusion Cloud, basically. So when we started implementing this, we couldn't find it in a placeholder or a document which can explain all these intricacies and complexities. So when we started implementing, there were so many lessons learned. There were so many, that's all the experiences, right? So I tried to compile all those based out of that experience, implementation experience, and wanted to share with larger groups so that they can benefit what we learned during this 2-year project experience. Frank, that's where this thought came from. So this is a session about the data conversion strategy. What are all the various phases involved in this project, in this part of this conversion exercise? Where extraction, how the extraction works, what is the profiling, cleansing, how dedupe actually has to be done, or based on the experiences, how JD Edwards data gets stored, and what is the best practice to do the dedupe, and what is the tax ID and OFAC significance before the data goes into Oracle, and how do we load the bank master data, and then finally loading the supplier master data into the Oracle Fusion Cloud systems. So these are all the 8 areas I would be covering today. So on the data conversion strategy, one of the first exercises we normally start is understanding our own data, like, the system, legacy system where we have been using for many years. Like, for example, JD Edwards. In most other companies where Oracle JD Edwards is, it would be probably not less than 20 years or 15, 20, 25, even 30 years old system. And during due course, like, there would be so many mergers, acquisitions, and a lot of data coming from other systems. So you would see, thousands and thousands of suppliers actually in JD Edwards when you start looking into it, and how effectively you need to move that data to a new system, right? So that is where, we're not just doing a lift and shift of the data from one system to the other system. This is an opportunity to understand your data, profile your data, and cleanse your data, dedupe, put the checks and balances now before you move, like, validate your tax IDs, or the suppliers, are any of the OFAC listing, which, we want to make sure because of the compliance nature, and then finally move the data. So all this is part of the data conversion strategy that would help you in loading a very streamlined, cleansed, and efficient data into the new system. So the step one, understanding the data of the source system. I took an example of JD Edwards because that's where I'm coming from. So JD Edwards is a system which is there around for a very long time. So you will see a lot of records. It is flexible. To that context, when we say flexible, there are not many validations that are built into the system to stop something. Okay, back and then, like, you don't have tax ID, system would still allow you to create a supplier. Okay, because it thinks that tax ID for the supplier might not be needed. Whereas when you go into Oracle Cloud, you have to have a tax ID, and there are a lot of validations inbuilt in Oracle Cloud around this tax ID, which we'll discuss down the lane. So you can have bank account in any format, any the number of the length of the account number can be 5, 6, 7, 10. It doesn't validate JD Edwards. It accepts the data as it is, unless there is some custom validations built internally. The standard doesn't force you to validate the bank account details before entering the data into the system, right? So, but it's not the case when we try to move that same data into Oracle Cloud. There are so many, it's a tightly coupled, okay? It does a lot of checks and balances there. It won't allow you if the length of the account number for this particular country is less than so many digits, or it cannot be alphanumeric. There can't be any space. So there are so many built-in validations in Oracle Cloud. So all these exercises have to be done before you prepare the data. So this is what we did, or what my experience in the past, how you prep the data for any reviews before we get there. So JD Edwards, you can build any standard programs using the native development platform, or we can have any reporting tools like we use reports now, which is very flexible, easy to use. You can build reports with a lot of data, to some extent, trimming the data, validating, massaging the data, and all that is possible. And also we can have an SQL extracts or ETL tools as well to extract this data. So at the end of the day, this is a template that what I would like to share with you, how we can actually start looking at the data, from the source system. The supplier number, which is a unique key, and what is the supplier name? Is there any different legal name for that? What is their tax ID? And what is their address today in the source system? So whatever the data that is there, what are the currency code, and what is their payment terms or bank account details and all in the source system needs to be brought into a standardized template. And this template is going to be reviewed for the rest of the journey. So it needs to be agreed with all the teams to make sure it has all the data that would be required as part of the conversion activity. So once we have this, the conditions that you are using to extract the data, that needs to be vetted out with the larger team. Hey, I'm going to use this criteria. Okay, in my system, there are 40,000 or 50,000 supplier records, but I don't want to bring in, let's say, the deactivated vendors because I have not been using. So there are maybe 10,000 I can exclude. Or maybe I don't want to bring in probably a particular country data this year. So you can exclude those data. So that data extraction or data selection criteria needs to be agreed when we start building these extract programs. And once we have all that, the data would be reviewed periodically. We did every week. We used to review the data because every week there would be a lot of new suppliers being onboarded. And that's an opportunity to keep validating if something is not in line with the target system expectations. And the second step in the data conversion strategy is data profiling. So you need to know your data before you want to migrate. So what are these data profiling components, right? Basically, you need to do the complete analysis. Like, okay, tax ID is blank. How do you want to handle them? So address, not all the address is mandatory. You don't have to have the full address in the source system to set up a supplier. You can just have one field, or probably a town or something. But in the target system, you have to have complete mailing address. You have to have your city, country, and the zip code in that specific format. So you can't have some of these mandatory fields missing, and be prepared for data load. So you have to have that data profiling done and make sure you have all these addressed. And also the other one is tax ID. Okay, tax IDs are very specific, especially I'm talking from a North American perspective, or US in specific. So you have a specific tax ID length, like it has to be 9 digits, let's say. So it has to be in that format. But the source system probably is allowing you to have sometimes 8, sometimes some alphabetical, people might say no W9 or no tax ID available or something like that. Still that's a valid supplier in the source system. We can take that as it is to the target system. And there will be phone numbers. Okay, phone numbers are everywhere. It's coming back from 25 plus years. So you will see some very weird phone numbers as well in the source system, where you can see 6 digits, sometimes 7 digits, sometimes, because we have not updated them. And there might not be email addresses as well. So all these things has to be reviewed as part of the data profiling exercise. And we also need to understand the criteria to review the supplier names. Okay, hey, these suppliers, what is the fuzzy match criteria should be? Okay, ABC Limited Inc. or ABC Limited or ABC US Inc. Are these going to be related to one supplier? So that is where you have to agree on the fuzzy name matching criteria. So these are all part of your duplicate candidate flagging logic, when we start this data profiling exercise. And tax IDs. Okay, hey, tax IDs. Can the tax IDs be same? Can the tax IDs be repeated between suppliers? That has to be discussed and needs to be agreed with the larger team when you do this data profiling exercise. And also, you have to come up with a criteria for the scoring. So if the supplier name is matching, then can you say that exact match? Can you say that these two suppliers are same? Okay. Or if the addresses are also matching along with the supplier name, can we say that these are the same suppliers? Something like that. I mean, you need to identify all those criteria and then document it, agree with the larger, take a call and make it as a decision, and document it and take it as a criteria in your logic down the lane. And the next one is, now you are into the next phase where you have the data profiling completed already, and you have the data extracts as well ready. So now the next exercise, and it's going to be painful and a longer run exercise, is the data cleansing, because it's you're seeing data from many years, and you see data from multiple systems that came as part of your M&As, and bringing over the data from some other mergers and all that. So one is first criteria what we have seen historically is the name normalization. Like I was talking about ABC Corp. So the source system might have ABC Corp dot and A dot B dot C. Sometimes Corp dot also is a different supplier there, and ABC Corp, and someone doing business as ABC Corp, but his legal name is something, or some proper case, like some caps, some smaller. You see that all sort of data everywhere. So you need to kind of start with that first name normalization exercise. Do we have the legal suffixes? Okay, what do you want to do with the legal suffixes before you start matching or trying to match these names? Do you want to consider the legal suffixes like INC or Corp or LLC as part of your name normalization, or you don't want to? If you don't want to have this as part of your normalization exercise, then just trim them out. Okay, so that actually gives you a tighter comparison perspective, like maybe you are getting closer, but maybe not all the times it is approved by the data team or by the business, because there can be companies which can be ABC Corp is totally different from ABC Inc. So in that cases, they might say, no, we have to have the legal suffix as well as part of your name normalization exercise. And sometimes we have seen a couple of extra spaces in between, like, A space, B space, C Corp, and there would be ABC Corp. So are these two same, or are they different registered entities? So we need to kind of, based on the data what we have, you have to review that data and come up with these data cleansing rules as well. And are we kind of expanding the abbreviations, like, for a manufacturing limited, are we saying MFG limited? And is that standard across all your supplier master? Or are you using at times manufacturer limited, and sometimes you are using MFG limited? And that is 100% possible because people have changed over a period of time. The person who is creating the suppliers, it's on them again. If they abbreviate because of the length of the because there are restrictions in JD Edwards name. Okay, you can't have a 100 character name fitting into that field. So it has a limit of 40 characters max, let's say. So you have to abbreviate at times. So over a period of time, you see all these kind of combinations, especially with the name. And address is totally different. I mean, most of the cases you don't see address properly formatted. So addresses will have very different data, like in most of the time. So we have a different strategy for standardizing the address. We will see how USP we can bring in leverage USPS address validation APIs also as part of the address standardization. And also the zip codes mostly are either changed or they have not captured in the past. But in Oracle, you have to have this zip codes in that specific format. And we also have the phone and email formatting. That's also, again, a very general missing issues, along with the tax and TIN IDs. With these, once you've kind of streamlined all this, we have a very important another component, that is a banking account information. We will talk about that in a separate slide. But yeah, bank account information mostly in the legacy systems are not validated, actually. They do a validation upfront based on the documents they receive. They do a manual call to the bank and then make sure they are tying up with the documentation the supplier has provided. But there is no explicit validation in the system as such to call it out whether that account is valid or not, or whether that combinations are correct or not. So that also needs to be vetted out at this time. And with this data all, we have now the sequence, execution sequence. You have to understand, agree on the cleansing execution sequence. So first you do the name normalization, and then address standardization, phone and email, TIN formatting, and then you are ready with the data for the next stage, where you can push that to further validations. So historically, this kind of cleansing, what we have seen out of, let's say I take a sample of 18,000 records from a previous experience, we say, then you can for sure would be normalizing not less than 3,000 to 4,000 supplier records, okay, and the names, and definitely more than 4,500 addresses can be corrected at this if we kind of go it in the right approach, and as well as the tax IDs. So why sometimes this supplier deduplication is uniquely different from every client? It will change for every business. It changes because inconsistent naming. Okay, as I explained before, is that all the same vendor? Is that a different vendor? It can talk a lot about how the data looks like. So yeah, that is where the challenges with the deduplication. Has more, it gets more complicated. Sometimes the legitimate same names. I have some examples, like, especially in US, you have a lot of franchisees, like, Advanced Auto Parts. I say there would be not less than 20 to 30 Advanced Auto Parts suppliers spread across sometimes even in cities, state-wise, and business create as per their relations with the local franchisee, they create a supplier for each. But Oracle will not accept this kind of data structure. Like, JD Edwards does accept, like, you can create the way you want it because it thinks that it is valid, but Oracle has a tight validation there. You can't have the same supplier name repeated in the system again and again. So you should know if they are either related, they are franchisees. You have to know that they are related, and you have to establish the parent-child relation kind of thing. And also sometimes you have the history for this 20-30-year-old data. Every supplier record has some sort of history. Either it's 100 vouchers you paid, or you have 10 times, sometimes 10, or you have a combinations of multiple things. And do you want to bring all that data? If you want to bring all that data, historical data, then you have to have all these historical suppliers with that also brought in, how you want to bring in. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges, and you can't directly say no, and you can't explicitly exclude all those suppliers just because they fall into one of those criteria. You have to really understand the impact of excluding those suppliers and agree with the business as well. Sorry, I think my screen. Oops. Am I still audible, Frank? Sorry,
yeah, you're fine. Perfect. Everything
Okay,
going well. Yeah.
So based on the data conversion approach, so there are 6 signals, okay, in this priority order, based on a successful implementation or successful practitioner experience, we can confidently recommend an approach like this with 6 signals in that priority order. So the tax ID match. Tax ID is a government issued, when you register an entity, it is issued. So it should be unique. So we go with that understanding for now that it is unique, and that is an absolute factor. Like, that's an absolute signal that, okay, if there are 3 suppliers with the same tax ID, then there is something not right. Okay, so you can't have 3 registrations with the same tax ID. But we have some exceptions. We'll talk about that later. But this is a definitive as per the standard approach. If the tax ID match is same, then we can put them into either a relevant, either a related supplier or a parent-child or something. But yes, they are all for the same organization. And bank account match. So bank accounts can be repeated in JD Edwards. A same account number can be used by 2 registered suppliers. The background, I don't know how common it is, but we have seen so many instances where the same bank account number is shared by multiple partners or vendors. So having said that, if the bank account is matching in a very generic rule, if the bank accounts are matching, then they are either very related suppliers or the same supplier. So we give them some scoring saying that, hey, we can give 40 points. They are very close. And the same as the dunce matching. Dunce matching is high confidence, we can say, but we don't have a lot of mom and shop suppliers in the dunce. So yeah, we still give that rating, but dunce match might not be 100% that. Then comes the exact name. Exact name is another complicated area where you have, after normalization, you can still give some 30 point scoring to it, and then still route it for the data stewards to take a look at it. And fuzzy name match and address name match are 2 other signals, but they carry very less scoring in this because it gets more complex, considering all the criteria where you can have the same names across multiples businesses here. So based on that scoring or weightage what we gave, we can put this into multiple tiers. Okay, tax ID, absolute, it overrides. Okay, it overrides all others, and you can put them into auto tier 1. Bank account match, yes, it is high. We can put them into tier 2. Like that, we can put in duns into tier 2, and address match and all will go a little down in the confidence scoring model. So if the scoring is more than 95%, yeah, it is an auto merge. Very, very good candidates for auto merge. Two suppliers having the same tax ID, um, which got 95% plus scoring of the matching, then you can propose, hey, merge these two suppliers and come up with one supplier. That is a confidence. You can confidently propose this. That's how this confidence scoring model basically works. So we actually have proposed, or we actually used successfully, a 3-tier governance model. Once you have this confidence scoring, then tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is the auto merge. Okay, that's where NIS can kind of successfully, based on the rules, data profiling, and all those background work we did, and agreement with the business and the data team. So tier 1 is more or less a automatic merge candidate. So yeah, that is one of those green categories. The ones that fall into the tier 2, where the data stewards has to spend some time, they need to take a look at the recommendations made by the system, whether it is a data, whatever the tool we are using, whatever comes out of that, output comes out of that tool, a data steward has to take a look, and they can close to maybe 20 to 30% of the time, those candidates, supplier records can be addressed by the data stewards. But the most challenging ones are the tier 3 records, where data steward don't want to take a call or can't take a call because there is a lot of ambiguity, and only business who really had very detailed knowledge based on the history of the supplier, based on the transactions, can take a call on those tier 3 candidates or tier 3 suppliers. So that is where, like we were talking about, the same supplier name. Okay, why did they set up the same supplier name multiple times? Maybe there is a reason. There's there are a lot of government entities in US, they bear the same names, like treasury or county tax collector. These are very standard names for you see across multiple supplier names. So are those set up for a reason? So that call can be only made by the business owners or the people who actually set up those suppliers based on the transactions and history. So these are the 3-tier models which we can successfully leverage for a deduplication workflow exercise. So these are the real world results. I take again a 18,000 plus supplier data set. You can successfully, based on this criteria, you can successfully clean up data, identify the potential duplicates, and finalize. Let's say maybe around 14 to 15% of the suppliers can be identified and cleansed before moving. Let's say 13,800 final list of suppliers to the target system. So this is part of the final approach. And one of those other critical cases where duplicates are not real duplicates, I was talking about advanced auto parts, and there is one more very similar into the business, is Napa auto parts, which is very common. You see every nook and corner in states for the auto parts. So you can see the supplier name most of the times would say Napa auto parts, auto parts, auto parts. And also sometimes that might have a specific town or city associated, where you can have franchisee networks, set up something like that. So you have to kind of now deal with it. Can we consolidate these into one supplier? Can we not? Or is there anything stopping us from consolidating? Ideally, the supplier management team want to consolidate because it is easy to see the spend. It is easy to negotiate pricing. It is easy to negotiate on the payment terms, and based on the consolidated spend you do. So always the supply chain team wants to consolidate, but the business, because of their proximity to the local shops or franchises, or because of the better terms with the local franchisees, they would prefer or they push towards an entity or a supplier setup at the local their city or the town level. So yeah, these are all some of the things that needs to be considered, and we cannot say duplicates just because the name is the same name. And once we are done with that, there's a cultural change also when people are moving from a system like JD Edwards to Oracle Cloud. Okay, so JD Edwards address book is flat, so you have one address book number or one assigned next number or unique number for every address book record. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stands for ABC car. That's as simple as it is. When it goes to Oracle Cloud, it is complex. So you have a lot of parent-child relations. You have entities that are tied up, that are established, and same entity can have multiple sites. Like in the previous example, you can still have Napa Auto Parts or some XYZ Auto Parts as an entity, and then you can have 10 different sites set up under that. Okay, a site is referring to each city or town, and it can has its own banking information, it can have its own payment terms as well as the address and all, but ultimately it is all tied up to one entity. So that kind of structure is allowed in the cloud. So that is where the cultural change or the mindset of the people who are moving from the legacy system to the new system needs to understand that change first, okay, and digest that. Because yeah, it is easy in a legacy system or a simple system to go and find a supplier, find one address book number, whereas in complex more complex systems, you have the better functionality, but at the same time it comes with complexity. So how you kind of convert this data and establish the same relation in the target systems gets complex. And registration portals, like with the new systems and cloud-based systems, suppliers can register by themselves and go update their profiles, see their contracts, and then start conversations and negotiations, everything on the portal, which was not the case in the legacy systems. But with this kind of setups, the complexity is involved. So the registration needs to be done. Then you have to think about all the intricacies involved in this one, and as well as the tax reporting. So how do you report the tax? So it is one-to-one in a legacy system because it goes by the we call it address book number or the supplier number. Whereas in cloud, it is aggregated. Okay, when we say the tax ID, it is always rolled up based on the tax ID, and it is actually aggregated. Is this what we are expecting at the end state, or are we expecting, or the tax teams are expecting something different? So these are all the cultural shifts which the business and everyone needs to understand before moving that way. So this is what we were talking about, how a parent supplier, various franchisees, and some subsidiaries located elsewhere are restructured or divested entities. So how they can be looked at and how they need to be set up, and how we have to establish the parent-child supplier hierarchy. And coming to the more critical part, we just touched it briefly, the bank master and bank branches. So as a system, when we implement Oracle Cloud, it doesn't come up with a preset data. It doesn't have any banks. It doesn't have any branches or anything loaded. So you have to identify a partner, an entity or banking partner who can provide the bank data. Okay, so we partnered with a company which provided kind of subscription model which sells this bank master as well as the branch information. For example, let's say Bank of America has probably around 100 different branches, or maybe more than that, maybe 500 or 1,000 or sometimes 2,000 branches. So we don't know what is the routing code. It does change from, again, country to country. So I'm only focusing on North America for now, where you have the routing number and the account number combination. That's where defines a valid account number. So that routing number is actually linked back to the branch. So when you set up a branch, let's say I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that particular Bank of America specific Raleigh branch has a routing code, and that is unique. So we don't have the data in the web world. Okay, you can't just go and download the data somewhere. So you need to go for the subscription, partner with a provider who can provide you the list of all those bank masters. So when we looked at that, we have around 10,500 at that time unique banks listed, registered with that particular provider. So that's what we load as bank master in the cloud. You need to have all this data upfront before we load any supplier, right? So we have to have all those 10,500 banks loaded first, which is a combination of bank number, and that's not mandatory. Bank name in Oracle actually works as a unique field. So you can't have the same Bank of America set up 2 times. Okay, so that's a validation defined. So bank branch. So bank branch, as we were discussing, we kind of looked at almost close to 22,000 bank branches across North America. These are not including the local, some of the credit unions and all, which are not listed with that provider. Excluding them, we still have around 22,000 bank branches. So a bank branch is a combination of the branch name, the routing code or branch number, and some banks might have additional information, but these are the basic mandatory criteria you need to have. So how do we load this? We have programs provided by Oracle. You can format the data that you receive. The data you receive probably won't be in the format that you can load into the Oracle. The data you receive would be sometimes in an XML format or some unstructured format provided the bank. So you have to develop some script, or one of your developers can help you format the data into a file, the FBDI or Oracle's FBDI loader template, and then you can come up with this run script, okay, so which can import that bank information into Oracle Cloud. And then you approve the data, then you have to load the bank branch. And also this data, this is one-time load, and you can't load any incorrect data when it comes to bank master, bank branch. So this needs to be thoroughly reviewed, signed off by the AP team or the finance team, whoever actually owns this piece from the business side. So you cannot load the duplicate bank numbers, you cannot load the duplicate data. So yeah, you have to be thoroughly reviewing this and then loading the data as bank master and bank branches before you kind of reach that final load process. So this is a checklist. Okay, before you start loading or migrating the data, these are the 8 migration checklists we call as the thumb rules. Okay, so you have to have the tax data completeness audit. Okay, so how do you audit the tax data? There are multiple ways. The tax ID is what we have in the system from the source system might not be correct. Okay, so how do you do that? There are multiple ways. We have developed an API. There are some companies on a subscription basis. You can talk to their system, and the API sends the tax ID as a parameter and then brings back whether the tax ID is matching with the name or not, and then gives the output. So that is one of those best ways. We have successfully validated each and every supplier record, because this is the place, or this is the phase where you can successfully validate before you move that data into the cloud. Okay, you don't want to move junk or incorrect data into the system and then try to come back and validate later down the line. It is impossible to go back and fix that, because Oracle will not allow you to modify a tax ID just like as it is. It has to, again, does a lot of validations, right? So best phase is before you load the data, get the tax ID validated, audit completed, and then prepare the data. And the name normalization, as we discussed, name normalization rules define legal names, abbreviations, punctuations. Are you stripping out the spaces, special characters, ampersands, and all? So that's one thing. And make sure your fuzzy matching algorithms are all reviewed and agreed, and the threshold scoring is agreed, which we reviewed. And the stewardship team are well trained and understand what these rules are, so that they can take a judgment on the data when it comes onto their approval queues. And the final business owners obviously is the complex part. Okay, they know a lot about this data, but most of the times they are very busy with the day-to-day activities, so they can't spend a lot of time. So you need to have as minimal data going into their queues for their review and approval. So yeah, we have to have that framework established as well. And Oracle Fusion parent-child hierarchy, which we were just talking about. So in our organization, what level of parent-child is allowed or is required, considering all the 9 yards. I mean, you have to think end to end, like, including the tax documentation, like, 1099s and everything, right? So you have to consider all those criteria as well. And finally, the surviving record selection criteria, which we have reviewed as well. And the final part, this is the final piece where with all the data you have prepared for months and months, and your implementation is happening parallelly, the data conversion team is working on this piece. And these are the 5 data conversion templates. Ultimately, you would see the data in line. So first one is the supplier import. So these are all standard Oracle provided templates, which we download from Oracle portals. And it looks very straightforward, like, the data is all in a standard, easy to understand format. Okay. Okay. I think that Excel probably is not opening on this presentation side. Yeah, I'll talk through that because I know it's not opening here on the template. So I'll talk through that. So suppliers import is the main data loader, where you have all the data related to the supplier exists. Like, it starts with your legal name. Okay. Oh, it took a while, but it came up. Let me open this. Okay. It is saying, okay, disable micro. That's fine. Okay, so it's all about the supplier name and the supplier number we are going to use, and what is the tax ID. We call spend authorized in Oracle Cloud world, whether this supplier is ready to get processed for transactions. Once we load it, that is what is called spend authorized. Like, you can issue a purchase order, you can make a payment to this supplier. And there are a lot of other attributes, like some are mandatory, some are not. So there's a lot of data. So is this what is the tax ID, and whether it's federal reportable. So these are all the standard attributes as part of Oracle Loader. You have to make sure all this data is populated, including the payment terms and any additional attributes, custom attributes, and you have any legal name different from the supplier name. So these attributes needs to be completely validated and uploaded based on the conversion exercises what we have done for many days. Okay, so that data needs to be populated into these templates. And once you are done with that, then Oracle Templates provides a process where you can convert this into a loadable format. Like, actually, they have this format, and all the instructions would be there in the supplier interface, this one, FBDI. So you have a generate CSV file format. When you hit this button, there are all the sequence of steps. They clearly call out in the standard Oracle provided template itself, like, what is this? What parts of this data has to be mandatory? What is the date formats it has to be? Everything is clearly explained in this. Anyone can read through and understand this. But this is the first of those 5 data loaders that has to be prepared, and it has to be loaded. And when you start loading it, Oracle has, now we did for many months a lot of exercise, but when Oracle try to read through this data, it also sees inbuilt validations and make sure that, hey, this data is not right. Okay, there is a repetition in this particular name as per my validation. I'm not going to allow this duplicate into the system. So it throws those exceptions. You need to review that data, fix those, and then reload it. Same with the supplier site. Okay, in previous case, we have seen a site can be created for Raleigh for the same vendor. Okay, you have to create a supplier site for Atlanta, so you will have another site record. And supplier address is the mailing address, so you have to have all the address details populated. And supplier contact information like the email, phone number, and all, this is mandatory. You have to have one contact minimum. Unlike in the legacy systems, you have to have a contact mandatory in the cloud to establish a supplier relation in the system, because that is the key for any supplier registration portal access. That is where the supplier get communicated from the system for any transaction related activities as well. And finally, the bank account information is the fifth of those. And there are few sheets in that, like when it comes to the bank. So you have to first create a payee, and then you have to create the bank accounts for that payee, and then you have to establish a relation if multiple payees are sharing the same account number. So there are few as part of the supplier bank account information loading as well. So that's the last 5 of those end state and our final stage of the supplier master conversion. And that's that will kind of give you the overall understanding of the whole cycle. And then this is just the key takeaways of the whole program, whatever we did as part of this exercise. And I think that's all from my end. And if any questions or anything, feel free to join the Oracle Fusion Cloud community, where there's a lot of discussions happen, questions answered. And also you can visit my blog spot or ask questions if you need any clarifications, if anyone is working on any of these programs, data conversion programs or anything as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hari. That was grand, crystal clear. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Lot of validation in there, and I'd say it takes a long time, does it, to do the migration from scratch?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And when you are doing it for the, if you know everything, or if someone is really guiding, then it is different. But if you're trying to learn and then implement, then you have to have some document like this, can help us, to navigate through all these intricacies.
So how long would it take?
It's very lengthy process. I would say depending on the company's volume of the suppliers, it could minimum be 6 to 8 months just on it's a parallel activity. The system is being implemented, but data conversion, the teams are different. So they would be working closely in this exercise as well.
And going from a legacy silo kind of situation to the cloud, will it save them money in the long run? Is it more secure?
It is expensive, to be honest. It might be expensive as well, but it comes with lots of advantages. You're moving to cloud, you got so many, that's where the systems are moving now. And the master data is the first in that fleet, right? First you have to have the customer master, supplier master in the system before you can bring in rest of your your procurement or sales or financials and all, right? So these are the first in that fleet to kind of get into the cloud environment first. So yes, irrespective, you have to get these pieces into the system first. It's legacy systems. We have seen JD Edwards for more than 20 years. It has a lot of leverage, and it is cost efficient. But the new technologies, cloud and all, you have to kind of be flexible in that area.
Very flexible. Very good. Anybody, any questions for Hari? No, all
No,
fine.
yeah, it's great presentation, Hari. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sowjanya.
Thank you.
How you doing, Paul? Did you get your network sorted?
Yeah, I guess I have it sorted now. I guess so.
Yeah. So just keep an eye
Okay.
on your LinkedIn just in case something happens again. Do you want to
All
try
right,
again?
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Or
go again. At what
you
point did you lose me initially?
sorry?
At what point did you lose me initially? I mean, on the first try.
I'd say probably about 5 minutes into the Azure thing. You were on your second slide, I'd say.
Oh, the second slide.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll just go ahead and share my screen again. Um, okay, please confirm if you can see my screen. I
Yeah, I
actually
got you
give it
there.
that
Yeah.
here before
Yeah.
now. Okay. So yeah, um, what the session is all about, I was saying. Okay. So there will be three outcomes to learn clearly from the session. And the first one is to understand Azure in plain language, plain English language, and the services it has to render. We have the computing, we have storage, networking, and AI services. And then the next thing I would love us to take a close look at is navigating the Azure portal confidently. We use the search and global search bar, the service page, the resource group. We try to create one if possible, as well as virtual machine and then notification, right? And then the next thing we may want to also look at is the real resource created and clean up. And this will involve having a resource group as a folder to organize our resources. And once we are done, then we can clean them. We can clean them up all at once. Um, that is this without any interruption. So the flow will go like this. We had the welcome already, and the simple concepts. That is where we are heading to. Then we will now go on the tour to the portal itself. We'll try to create resource group, and that this is just the flow, how the flow will be like. And then this is what the portal looks like here on my slide. The portal is the easiest starting point for a beginner practice. Having understood the concepts, to learn to use the search bar first, then we'll move forward step by step. So, in simple language, we have Azure here. Oh, Azure is the Microsoft cloud platform. So, I believe before now we must have talked about cloud computing here before as accessing cloud resources over the internet. The term cloud equal to internet. And one question I usually ask people when I try to describe cloud computing is one, do you use a mobile phone? Of course, we're in a world where mobile phone is now essential, and a lot of application we run on our mobile phone, our everyday applications such as Snapchat for pictures. We have social media such as Facebook, Instagram, for example, and we use those applications to upload pictures and videos on one device, and then we retrieve them on another device. So one question that I usually ask is, where do you think these pictures and videos are saving up? If you, maybe the essence of you posting it was to just get probably engagement or maybe pass a message, where do you think they save? So the simple sense is they save on the cloud, and then usually I would tell people that cloud has many providers, and the most common one that people will easily relate with is the Google, in the sense that everybody use Gmail. Almost everybody will make use of Google Drive, and a lot of other services they render just for our everyday use. Just the same way Google is, that is how we also have Microsoft, right? Microsoft offer some other platform, but Azure specifically is Microsoft Cloud Platform. The same way you save your details in Facebook and the likes, that is the same way you leverage your Microsoft Cloud Platform, which is Azure, to save your resources. Then, in a simple sense, for example, instead of having or buying and managing your own physical servers, you rent computing, storage, networking, databases, and AI services when you need them. Now, key emphasis on rent, right? Rent. In this sense, you can only rent what you don't own, right? And sometimes getting things on rent feels much better than actually owning them, especially if they will cause you inconveniences for owning them. For example, now we talked about the physical servers. Instead of having them, if you don't have the need for them, and then you just do because you want to save some certain files, you go to the market, you buy a server, you buy a rack, you buy cables, you create a space, you begin to do all of those connections. It could take several months and even years to compile all of those things together, depending on how fast the situation is. Rather than that, you can just take a couple of your minutes, go to the cloud, and just search for certain services that you'll be needing. You provision them, you make use of them, you pay as you go, as you make use of these services, you pay depending on how much you use them. And that is where rent comes in. Like we know, when you are renting anything from anyone, you need to pay for the time you'll be using that particular thing you are renting. And such of those services that we can rent from Azure are these that are underlisted. These are just the basic example. And yeah, you see AI service here. I just, in the process of preparing this slide, I just thought of the name Azure and AI Show. And I felt, okay, since it's Azure and AI Show and Azure offers AI services, why not just do a brief or a flash through some of those AI services that Azure render. And that is why we are just bringing it up here. We may just still find it in one of the slides or the other. So, example of how the Azure cloud can actually help is one, when you need a server, you just go to Azure portal, like we explained up here, you provision a virtual machine. When you need a file storage, instead of getting a server and starting the configuration, you go ahead to Azure, you provision a storage account or a blob storage. Then when you need a website, of course, you can go deploy an app service, you customize this to your need, and you will have something like a website, and you can even put it out there for people to actually see. And then, of course, if you need intelligence, we have Azure AI services such as Foundry. We also have other tools that can automate processes to undo our everyday task in our organization or our day-to-day life, basically. And we have the run book, for example, where you just need to save up some scripts, and on the it on schedule, whichever way you configure with, it tends to perform a kind of automation for you, right? Very detailed and well uh, automated tasks for you. And of course, just to bridge the cloud and AI, the same way we have our resources or compute, storage, and the likes on cloud. That is the same way we have AI on the cloud. Like we said, where do you think your pictures actually save? AI tools that you use this day are not just a magic that fell from heaven where you just go ahead and you say, hey, hi, hey, Copilot, and it starts working. There are actually services that are working behind the scene that we do not see. All we care about is we send our prompt and it gives us our result. Of course, there are other things that are running on the background. And those things running on the background, where are they saving? They are as well saving on the cloud. And also, we would agree that without the internet, then we would not be able to access any Azure, any AI tool at all. So in essence, we are saying if there is no cloud, then there will be no AI services. And of course, we know what AI means to us in today's world. All right. So for Azure, basically, we have four Azure ideas that every beginner, especially based on how our topic is even tailored, must grasp. Right? We have four blocks hierarchy from bottom to top, and that is what we are just going to look at carefully. The first one is the management group. Now, if you are thinking about the management group, there is something I want us to always look at. Look at the management group as the head of the family, let's say the father of the home, the company wide umbrella. Now, the father of the home ideally is meant to give out instructions, is meant to discipline, and is also meant to provide and do a whole lot of things, right? Now, if you see this management group here coming down here to check to get the definition, you see that it just sits above the subscription, right? It sits right above the subscription for governance in larger organization. Now you see it as the highest level, just like the father of the home that controls the home. It is used to organize multiple subscription. Now you can have multiple subscription under a management group, and if there is need for you to define policy or permission to those subscription, you don't have to go one after the other. You can just do your configuration on the management group, and every other subscription that is under the management group will automatically inherit those settings. The same way, the other resources that will be created under that other any particular subscription under the management group, right? And then we have the subscription. In subscription now, when we talk about subscription, we are talking about billing and management boundary. Now, this place is where you are actually being charged. Initially we say you pay for the service, for the services that you use as you go, right? This is where you are being charged. Under subscription, there is billing, you put in your card, and then at the end of the month, at the end of the year, depending on your preference, you are being charged for what you have used. So a subscription is just the account boundary for billing, quotas. Yes, you can also set up your quotas for any subscription, in the sense that you say, okay, this month you don't want to spend beyond certain amount, you can go ahead and set it. And also access, you say, okay, so somebody here or so user should not be able to access a particular subscription a whole lot. That's now we'll now be talking about the IAM. Then every resource you create must belong to a subscription. That is one thing to note. The emphasis on must, right? It didn't say it should, or it shouldn't, or it's not giving us an option. So once you want to create any resource in Azure, you need a subscription where that resource will live in. That is to say, if you don't have a subscription able to, please, am I still audible here?
Yeah, you're good, Paul. You're good.
Okay. So you may not be able to provision any resource at all. So what it does is it controls billing, who pays, and it controls access, who can access what, right? That is what the subscription basically do. All right. So now we talk about resource group. You see resource group as a folder in your computer, as a folder in your what's it called, on your phone. They help you to manage your data, your files. You tend to arrange and organize your files in a particular folder, in the sense that if you have anything to do with that, or with the list, or all possibly all the files under a particular folder, you don't need to go through the file one after the other. All you can do is to just go ahead and carry out that action on the folder. That is, and then when you do that, it tends to affect the all the resources in that folder, right? That is just what the subscription, or sorry, what the resource group does for us, right? A resource group organizes related resources that share the same life cycle. Life cycle, just in case you want to clear off what you've assembled in that resource group, making it easier to manage, update, and perform cleanup. Then you now come to resource, right? If you come to resource, we are now talking about the actual service that you are creating. That is what the resource is. What are you creating? Are you creating a virtual machine? Are you creating a storage, a database, AI service? What have you? What are you actually creating? Right? That is the actual, that is what we call the resource. Anything at all that you can create in Azure is referred to as Azure. Now, sorry, as resource. Now look at how it comes, right? So we have resources. When you create a resource, it lives under a resource group. Then resource group lives under subscription. And then subscription now goes ahead to live under management group. This may not be necessary or mandatory, right? You can decide not to have a custom management group. So yeah, we go region. A region. Like we said, where do you think the data you are uploading online are saving in? There is it's not a rocket science, and it's not a magic that you just upload them up there, and at any time you feel you need access to them, you just switch up your internet, and then boom, you are there. No, it is actually saving up somewhere. And each time you request to access it, provided you have the right access to actually access those resources, you just query it, and then the wherever it is saved in will then give you access to say, okay, come and take what you want, right?
this is what regions mean. Region is where the service runs physically. As much as you're uploading your picture in Nigeria, for example, you may have the data center in the United States. That means it is going there. The speed at which it's saved is very high, actually. It goes very fast, right? Because of that internet that is in place. So it goes there, it's stored over there. And why do we actually need this region? Because of course, when creating a resource in Azure, you tend to choose a region where you want that resources to reside in. One thing to put into consideration first is the case of latency. How fast do you want to reach it? I'm in Lagos, Nigeria. If I need to create a resource and need to access it very fast, then I may want to consider South Africa, right? To create my resources in. That means they will just be living close to me here in South Africa. And if I should need access to them, I can easily query them. And the time it takes to get to South Africa and back would not be all that much. But if I should choose to say, okay, put it in West Europe, before it gets here and come back, it may take a little longer than getting to South Africa because of the distance in place. So in essence, one thing to put into consideration picking a region is that latency of accessing your resource. Another thing is the availability of some resources varies by their region. One, there can be resources that are available in Africa that will not be available in West Europe. Some may just be the SKUs, right? Certain region may be giving or may have uh, that flexibility of giving you more options to pick in terms of SKUs. Why some will give you some limited access. Sometimes it's because of data regulation and all of those things, right? It is very important that you put all of those things into consideration as well. So what we need to know from here or get away from here is everything we create, particularly for this session, we save in one shared resource group. The essence is at the end of the day, we are going to get the resource group deleted so that every other thing that is attached or under that resource group can be cleared up together, all of it. This approach can even help you manage cost, right? Because you don't need to be looking around for certain resources and all of those. So when you don't need a certain resource, you have created, then you go ahead and then you delete. So this is the best approach to manage and organize your resources and keeping it very simple. All right, so now we are going to take a short tour to Azure portal. A short tour, and what we are going to do first, this is what the Azure portal looks like. The first thing we want to do is to try and access the portal first. The second thing is we try to explore how the global search bar works, and then we talk about the menu here. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and open my web browser. Okay, over here, I will just go on to a new tab, and then I'll search for portal.azure.com. This is the official URL for Azure portal. So when you hit on it, ideally, I think I'm right, but let's here is going to land us. Okay, good. So here is taking us to a pick an account, right? This may just be your own first time trying it out. You may not have all of these accounts listed here. So definitely it will not take you here. So what we're going to do is to just kind of starting at first to say, okay, assuming these accounts are not here, right? Where is it taking us? And I don't even want to use it off this account. So I can just go ahead and say sign in with another account. If you don't have an account, you can go ahead and create one. Mind you, creating an account means that you need to provide a credit card because there will be a time where you will be needed to be billed. But yes, Azure can give you the first month to use the Azure platform for free, after which they start billing you, right? So in this case, I'm not creating any account. I will just go ahead and enter my username. Meanwhile, the first month they are giving you for free is not like all free. They will give you 200 dollars to use. Yes, and that is what you have to use for the testing period. Okay, so yeah, I will need to provide my password, and this in identity and access management is what we call providing what I know. These guys now, I know them, and that is why I'm going to supply them, right? So, yes. So now, the first thing that happened, if you notice on our first login, on our first attempt, when I didn't add the .com, it returns an error. It has went to query the Azure database, and it says, no, the user doesn't exist. That error came up, and then when I rewrite the error, the name correctly, the UPN correctly, it proceeded to password. Right now, for password, it has gone and also verified. Okay, the user is here. How about the password? In most cases, if not that my account has been signed in before, it ought to have brought me for MFA, multi-factor authentication, where it will direct me to my phone to say, okay, approve this authentication. That is now in identity and access management. That is what we call what you have, right? Do I have this thing? Can I match it just in case my account is compromised and a threat actor happens to get my username and password? Should they be able to proceed and sign in? And then that approval becomes very, very important. So now, this is what our Azure portal looks like. Now, your own might not look like this, actually. All right, yours might not look like this. These are coming up here because these are the recent services that I have explored in recent time, right? I've tried. If you check when we came here, the page we were in was resource group, and that is why you are having it up here. Maybe I've opened virtual machine recently, and then Enter ID and the likes. That is why you are having them up here. And these are my recent resources that I have used, right? This is why they are all coming up here. Okay, so one thing that is also a key and one thing you should make good use of and make it your best friend as far as Azure is concerned is the global search bar. Now, what this does for you is today, you don't need to memorize all the Azure services name. As a matter of fact, as I speak to you, there are lots of services that I don't even know their name, probably because I've not come across them or I've not used them yet, a whole lot, right? So you don't need to, try to memorize all the names already. All you just need to do is just to be learning it one day after the other. You keep, just progressing. So in this case now, what you can do is you can literally search for anything. These are history of what I have recently searched for, right? Rather than trying to say, okay, where are my services? Let me go and look for virtual machine. Trust you. If I had, okay, let's say I'm looking for something, I say all services. How many do I want to look for? There are a whole lot of it, right? Rather than saying, okay, where is arrow, where is this? No, you can just come here, you search resource. If I should search for resource, one thing will happen, it will bring a list of all the services that has resource attached to their name, just the same way you have here. Then you can pick. But if I'm going for resource group, I can go ahead and then say group, right? If I say group, it will just bring it up, on the top, right? And then like that, you can just pick it and you go ahead rather than trying to search for all the services there. In fact, Azure has made it more easier. If you should say ROG, or maybe you have a resource that has a particular name, you don't know where the resource is located, and you know the name, you can just enter the name from here. Then Azure will give you a list of resources that has that name. Look at it here, resources. You have ESP. You make use of this global search bar, yeah, sure. So now, another thing from our slide that we must also hold on to is the menu. Now, if you come to this menu here, there are a whole lot of stuff here. What I want us to explore in this case is the dashboard, right? If you come to the dashboard here, you see a quick start plus tutorial. You see a list of services that are listed here, and then all my resources are just trying to load up. Now, I have about, I don't know why it's taking its time. It ought to have loaded for now. Let me refresh. Okay, so now these are the list of all my resources. You can decide to say, okay, you want to see all the resources that I have in this environment. So that is coming up. While it is our focus
How you doing, Paul? Can you hear me? How you doing, Paul?
Looks like we lost Paul.
Yeah. I think logging into Azure probably used up a lot of his bandwidth. I'll just send him a message.
Okay, so now what I would encourage us to do is, as I click through, I'm going to go very slowly, not too fast, just so we can all follow along. The essence is this: we don't need to be in a hurry to deploy any solution, any service, right? We need to just, as we click, it is best we even understand what we are clicking. Yes, curiosity can make us to deploy a lot of things, can make us to carry out a lot of configuration. It is also important to note that in the process of doing all of those, we can break things that we cannot make up again, right? So we have to be careful as we go along, just so you fully understand what you are doing. Okay, so every tiny pause, like we have here, every tiny pause, every single observation that you make as you go along would actually help go a long way in reducing your confusion, more than being in a hurry to just deploy anything. Okay, so these are the list of all my resources, right? I have, this is showing page one. We have only one page because we have 200 resources and 200 display counts, and I have just 139, right? I can come and say I want 100 to show. In this case, I'll be expecting this to come up with, two pages. So I can you can decide to say, no, the display count should be 10, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now, what are we doing first? what are we doing first? We are going to go ahead and create a resource group. So there are two approaches we are going to use. Of course, there are a lot of approaches we can use to create a resource group, but we are going to go through the very basic points where a resource group can be created and how, right? So there are a few things that are demanded of you when creating a resource group to organize your resources. Like we have here, this is what the page looks like, and all you just need to do is name it clearly, you pick a subscription, you choose a region, you review what you have entered, and then you create. Okay, so now what we will do is to head back to Azure portal and come over here. The good thing is this search bar here is available anywhere you are. So you can literally just search regardless and say, oh, resource groups, and then I'll come. So for you, you may not have all of these resource groups that that will be coming up from here now. I don't know, the portal is quite slow this evening. You will not have all of this resource group, all of these, right? I am having these groups here because I have had them before now, and I've used them for different reasons, right? This is easier for me that, okay, if I want to check any of the resources I have provisioned in the course of this AZ series, I can just come here and then I'll be able to see all the resources that are under here, right? I can go ahead. Okay, so in a moment, it's out. Oh. So sometimes the portal can, be slow, but when it does, don't panic. You have your refresh button. You can always click on it to refresh. All right. So these are the resources that are there. Imagine if I have had these resources created scattered like across the tenant, and I need to, probably delete something or make. Well, yeah, Azure, sometimes services are not, cannot live in isolation. Sometimes one service can be dependent on another service. Once you have them scattered, how can you manage them? That is the big question. So if you check here again, you see that going back, I can decide to go back from here to the initial page I'm coming from to say resource manager or resource groups, or go back home. Or in this case, I'll just go back to resource groups. So what we want to do is to click on this create here to create a resource group. I don't forget what the resource group is and what it is meant to be. The resource group is a folder. Just bear it at the back of your mind like that. Is a folder that sources or resources that shares same life cycle or that needs to work together, right? To better manage them. That is what a resource group is. And remember, initially we said we only need some basic information in creating a resource group, right? Now, this is Azure portal. This process that we are on now is what we call the GUI, graphical user interface, right? This is the GUI process. We would also explore the Cloud Shell process in creating this resource much later. Okay, so, oh my God, this is, okay, so now the first thing you need to choose is your subscription. Note again, when you are creating a resource in Azure, there are two things to consider. The first one is the asterisk when you are filling in your information. the asterisk, that column without an option needs to be filled, right? You cannot go ahead leaving an, a place like this blank, provided it is asterisk, right? That is one to note. If it's not, then you can move ahead without any obligation. Then this more information icon is also very, very, very important, just in case you seek clarity in what you are doing as you go on, right? Now, when you come here, it tends to say, okay, explain the essence of that particular column for you. And in this case, it's telling us that a resource in a subscription are built together, right? Basically for billing, and that is why you are picking it. And now look at the resource group. It is defined here, a container that holds related resources for an Azure solution. The resource group can include all the resources for the solution, or only those resources that you want to manage as a group. You decide how you want to allocate resources to resource groups based on what makes the most sense for your organization. So there are a lot of clarity right under the Azure portal. So in your own case, you may be having just one subscription here, all right? And for your organization, maybe they may have numerous of them, like a whole lot. You can decide to choose any. If you don't have one, means you cannot create the resource. But if you do have one, you can go ahead and just select it if you don't have any option to pick another. But if you have option to pick another, then you can go. I think the last time I checked, now this is notification bar. Sorry, I'm coming here too fast. We'll definitely get here. Meanwhile, this notification bar is also very important because everything you do is going to be reporting here to say, okay, this is in progress, this is coming, and this is going. All right, you can decide to play. In this case, for this particular subscription, Cloud Royale is having just 0.02 credit remaining. This particular subscription cycle is on a monthly basis. So at the end of the month, when my billing cycle is over, I'll be credited with another credit again, right? So for now, if that time had not come and this credit happens to go to 0.00, meaning I don't have any credit left, this particular subscription will be temporarily disabled and I will not be able to pick it from here until my billing cycle is over and I am recredited, right? But for now, I can still pick it, okay? I think in my subscription, I have a few that I canceled by myself, but yeah, and that they are not listed here. So the next thing you want to do is to pick a name. I don't know how you want to define your name in the next lecture. I'm going to intentionally make some mistakes here, just so we can, learn from it to see what is accepted in naming resource group in Azure and what is not accepted. For example, I want to name this resource group Azure and AI Show, right? I'll go ahead and say Azure. I'm already having error. So it gives you the error message as you go on, even almost immediately, right? If I say Azure and AI Show, So the first thing you notice is immediately I enter the space here, the error pop up, right? Okay, what if I now decide to close all the spaces? I'm coming, we'll read through the error. What if I now decide to close all the spaces? Now we're still having error. Let's read what the error is now. Resource group names can only include alphanumeric, underscore, parentheses, hyphen, period, except at the end, and Unicode characters that match the allowed characters. Now, here means that the error, the possible reason that will be causing this error is this and because it's not listed among some of the characters that can be used. So let's say I'm moving it out. You see that it's now say, okay, I can go. There is no error message, right? Now they say hyphen is accepted. What if I put hyphen here? Can I go? Yes. They say underscore is accepted. Can I go? Yes. And then this may not be an appropriate way of naming your resource group actually, right? But you have to define a pattern for naming your resources in Azure just so it can make a little sense, rather than having a random name anyhow. So in this case, you see Azure and AI Show. I can decide to say, okay, I can even decide to say, okay, I'm capitalizing all the words. It still goes fine, but it looks so jam-packed to me. So I will just go ahead to put the underscore so that I can have a kind of a consistency in my naming. So yeah, region, this is choose the Azure region that is right for you and your customer. So I have a list of the region I can pick from. These are the regions available for me. If maybe I want to look for West Europe now and I'm finding it difficult to pick, from here I can just come and search for West. And if I can't still get it, I use I include the Europe. And of course, we'll have it here, right? So let's say I want to provision this Azure resource group in Europe region. So I can just go ahead and go to next. Now tags, right? Tags, as you can see, this in no way is not in any way a masteric means you can actually go. So for you starting actually, this shouldn't really bother you much, okay? But it is important to apply tags in an enterprise environment. Now, this is what tag does. Apply tags to your Azure resources to logically organize them by categories, right? A tag consists of a key name and a value tag names are case sensitive and tag values are also what? Case sensitive. Now, what it does is if I say event, let me just say event, right? And I say Azure and let's say Azure and AI Show. Now this is for the resource group, right? I can with just this tag, I can do a lot with it. I can do a filter to say, okay, I'm looking for this tag and I want to apply a policy based on this tag, whether coming or going. I may have a policy existing in my environment to say, okay, once any tags has a name event, don't forget they say it's case sensitive and this is case sensitive. This should be applied to them. It automatically picks it, right? You can do a whole lot. You can use this to restrict certain users to, maybe the resource. You can use this to grant access. You can use tags for a whole lot in Azure, but it shouldn't really be a worry for to you at the moment, something we can actually do with that at this point. So now, so far so good. This is the summary of what we've entered so far. This is the subscription we've picked. This is the resource group name. This is the region, West Europe, and we have this tag here. If I decide, we can decide to say, oh, this is not the correct spelling for the tag. Let's quickly go back and edit it. You can. Let's say, okay, let's delete the resource and the tags rather, and then go next. You see now tag is now none. Here is where you just do a review of everything you have entered to be sure that hey, you are on the right path. Okay, and then you just hit on create. Immediately you hit on create, you will see. Let's close this up. What is happening?
Can you just check the chat there?
Okay, the chat here. Okay, so now look at it. There are 3 notifications. Okay, let me quickly check. I'm using a system. Oh, chat. Okay, noted. So this is another place to keep an eye, this notification, right? I hit on create multiple times and then you have all of this coming up and up and up, right? Yeah, so that is that. We have limited time, so we may just, want to hurry up to round this session off. Yeah, we can still do more later. I mean, we are always around. We can do a whole lot more. So yeah, we create a resource group, and another way is okay. The same thing goes if you want to create a virtual machine. You come, you choose create. These are virtual machines that you have here. You say create. You do virtual machine. Um, okay. So virtual machine. For virtual machine, what you need is you choose the resource group, you set the VM name, you select an image, the size, you set up the inbound options, how you want the VM to be accessed, and then you proceed to say, okay, now you can actually go ahead and create. Okay. So this is saying, okay, yeah, you also choose subscription. Here now you can also create a resource group from here. Okay, you can choose from a resource group. For example, the one we just created. Where is it? Azure and AI Show. This is where we just created. If we should create this virtual machine here, it will go ahead and um, create under that particular resource group. Okay, so yeah, okay, let's just create a let's just create what's it called now, a resource group using bash. So for bash, okay, let's just get to Azure portal again. So yeah, if you come here in Azure portal, this is what we call the cloud shell, right? If you hit on it, it gives you a command interface. It gives you a command to, let me first of all close this, return back home and refresh the page to see a command interface where you can say, okay, you want to create XYZ. So let's try and access it again. Cloud Share sometimes takes time to come up. So now in Cloud Share for Azure portal, there are two commands that you can use. You can decide to go and use the PowerShell script. You can decide to use the Bash script. So for PowerShell, let's just do this. For Bash, you notice that there are usually two hyphen to indicate the action you want to carry on. You see name, you see location, and here you just say AZ group create. If it's VM, you say AZ VM create, like that. But for PowerShell now, you see new hyphen AZ VM. Then there are usually one hyphen to say this is what you want the resource group name, where you want the virtual machine to be created, the name of the virtual machine. I already set this up here just so we can just copy and paste in trying to create our virtual machine and resource group using the cloud share. Unfortunately, my cloud share is not opening, and then there is not have much time again. Okay, so yes, clearly Azure is not creating just one thing. It is creating a small solution made of connected, resources, right? So for virtual machine, you have to create the VM itself. You create a disk, you create network interface, you create subnet, you create public IP, you put all of them create under a resource group, right? So they work hand to hand together. Okay, so yeah, Azure, of course, we've said this is just a recap, is a Microsoft Cloud platform. The region is where the service runs. The resource group is the logical container that helps manages or contain your resources and help you manage them better. The cloud plus portal plus cloud share. This is the way to actually work, and it's very easy. Then to always clean up, yes, maybe we'll just go ahead and clean that delete the resource group we just created. So in order of views, we have the organize, you deploy, you inspect, and then you clean up, right? With this, you should feel confident using the Azure portal and not overwhelmed. In summary, think of cloud as the engine of anything you can store and retrieve over the internet, and AI as the intelligence, right? Azure gives you the both. Okay, Azure gives you AI intelligence and it gives you cloud services. So let's just wrap up here by deleting the resource group that we just created. And because I may not, okay, we may be needing it in the future actually. So to delete the resource group is not something very hard. What you can just do is just to open the overview of the resource group, and then you see delete here. Yes, here there is no resource in this resource group, and that is why you have it like this. Once you hit on delete, it's expected to say, okay, to be sure that this is the resource group you want to delete, you have to copy the name of that resource group, you paste it, and then you enter, and boom, you are there. Okay, yes, this is it. You can just copy from here. They give you that option to say copy. When you paste, the delete is enabled for you. But once I remove the W, for example, the delete is grayed out, right? That is it. All right, Frank, I think that will now bring us to a close for this intro to practical Azure Cloud.
Very good, Paul. That was really great presentation from start to finish. We've nearly done the whole course. So listen, we'll finish the live session. I'm just going to just end it here at my end. Just hold on for a minute. You don't go anywhere. So thanks everybody for joining the Azure and AI show this week. We'll be back 2 weeks time, and Paul is going to do another session for us on the 11th. Paul, is that it?
Yeah, on the 11th, exactly.
And we'll reschedule the Copilot agent one as well. So I'll talk to you about that. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll be back in 2 weeks time. Thank you.
All right.